Let me know if you can't hear me, okay? It's been a while since I've used a full-blown coaching voice, you know, pandemic and all that good stuff like that. So like Coach Katya said, my name's Jill Muhe. I am a former college coach. I coached for 10 years at the college level. I coached at the NAIA level and the Division II level. I played Division II for UC Davis in California. I played for 10 years on the AVP, so the Pro Beach Tour. So I did that. I worked as an athletic trainer at the junior college level, and I coached at the junior college level as well in California. And then I transitioned to full-time coaching. I coached at Briarcliff University, which is an NAIA school that you may or may not have ever heard of. If you play NAIA, you will play the national championships in Sioux City, Iowa, which is where Briarcliff is located, which I couldn't have found on a map until I started coaching there. I then also coached at San Francisco State. I'm originally from California in the Bay Area. So I coached at San Francisco State for 3 years, and then I coached at Colorado State University Pueblo, which you also probably couldn't find on a map at this point in time, as well before I moved to Tampa. I'm now actually just a little to complete the circle. I'm a little on the other side of things now, and I work for a company. It's called Athletes to Careers, and I help athletes transition out of college and sport into their professional career. So older brothers or sisters, anything like that, anyone needs help, more than happy to help. That's a side note. So I have a list of things that Coach Katia wanted me to talk about. I'm going to hopefully remember all of them. They are on my phone, so I will potentially pull it out, or she will cue me in onto what I've missed. One of the biggest things that we talk about, one of the things I just want you guys to know is that great volleyball is being played at every level that you can play at, okay? When we talk about different schools, we always go, D1, D2, D3, NAIA, and it gets listed in this order, and it starts to kind of feel like that's the order of quality volleyball. You know what I mean? It goes like that. I'm going to tell you right now, I have seen some D3 schools that have made D2 schools look dumb. Okay? I have seen some D2 schools that could have rivaled some D1 schools. And I have seen some NAIA schools in the national championship tournament that could go toe-to-toe with a lot of Division I schools. There is fantastic volleyball being played at all levels. Okay? The commonality is the fact that it's a lot of work, all right, at that level. I'm talking to athletes now who have done it for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years now, sometimes with COVID at the moment, which is just crazy. And the biggest thing that we talk about is the fact that they have balanced school, which is harder than you think it's going to be, sport, which is harder than you think it's going to be, and this weird thing about having to do their own laundry and figuring out how to feed themselves and go to the grocery store, and for some reason, stuff just doesn't magically get done. So balancing life. So it is a lot of work. It is an amazing experience. It is an absolute amazing experience, but it is a lot of work. So for those of you who want to, how do you get there, right? One of the biggest things I can tell you is that you need to keep an open mind in regards to it cannot just be, I'm doing D1 and that's it, okay? That's all I'm going to go D1. That's it. That's the way I was. I was like, D1 or nothing. Yeah, I ended up in D2, okay? Had a great experience, okay? Figured out that we almost played each other at one point in time, because she was winning national championships. I was only winning conference championships, but that's okay. But had a great experience at the Division II level, came out with a great education, and was able to progress from there. There is great volleyball being played. You have to do your research, okay? You have to open up your scope a little bit, figure out what you want to do, what you want to study, what you want. Do you want to be close enough to home so that you can buzz home real quick and do a load of laundry? Mom, Dad, do you want them close enough to home so that they buzz home and do a load of laundry? Okay? From that standpoint, do you want to go away? Do you say, you know what, I've been in Florida my whole life, I want to go to Wisconsin, that type of thing like that. Do you want to have a different experience outside of what you currently have? Do you want options? Do you not know? Not knowing is perfectly fine at this point in time too. What do we have here? We have 16s and 17s right now. How many of you know exactly where you want to go to college? I'm really happy. I'm really happy that not a lot of hands went up. Where is it? University of Florida. All right. Okay. That's okay, is what I'm saying at this point in time. It's a process, and there's great volleyball being played all over the place. You've probably heard this multiple times. When you're picking your school, try not to pick it just for the coach that's there, okay? Speaking as a coach that moved a lot for a variety of different reasons, you have to be able to want to be at that school if volleyball is not an option, okay? We hope it doesn't happen, but coaches leave, coaches get promoted, injuries happen. We don't like to talk about that, but you have to want to be at that school if volleyball does not exist for you at that time, okay? It's so tempting to pick a school solely based on volleyball. It's not the best advice I could ever give you, okay? All right, where am I at? What have I not hit? I mean, I know I haven't hit a lot. Where do you want me to go? Oh, great, anywhere I want. Okay, all right, so how do you get to school? How do you get seen? How do you get recruited? All that good fun stuff like that, okay?
Do you have the only way open to get seen?
Absolutely not. I made a wonderful living recruiting from high-level American and USA teams. Loved it. You know why? Because everybody in that setting just showed me so much work ethic, because usually they had a chip on their shoulder because they were like, well, you know what? This isn't exactly where I want to be, but you know what? I've got a chip on my shoulder, and if you take that chip and you go, you know what? I'm going to show everybody in this gym how good I am, and I'm going to be the best that I can be, that shines through at that level. Love to recruit at that level. At the open level, it's a circus at that point in time. It's a freaking circus, all right? And so just because you're playing in open also doesn't guarantee you that you're going to be seen either, okay? You have to do the work to be able to be seen. As much as we like to see it in regards to the movies and all this different type of stuff like that, it doesn't just poof. It doesn't just happen. You have to do the work. And by work, I mean, you got to do the work in the gym, you got to be a good volleyball player, you got to do other work, but you also have to work to bring me as a coach to you. And that's where your research comes in, identification, reaching out, okay? I show up at a tournament with a list of 400 names on it that I need to see. Yeah, that is not physically possible for me to do, okay? So you have to make it so that you're at the top of my list. You're at the top part of my list so that I make sure that I get to your court, okay? And then when I come to your court, no matter what you're doing, whether you're playing, whether you're reffing, whether you're keeping score, whether you're sitting on the bench, whether you've just been yanked, whatever you're doing, you need to do it with enthusiasm, with a great attitude, and be the best teammate that you can be. Because I am looking for reasons to cross you off my list. Because my list is 400 people long, okay? Now, another side note, parents, that goes for you too. If I'm standing in the sidelines and I can identify who your kid is by how you're yelling at them, the coach, the ref, or that type of thing like that, I will cross a name off my list as well, okay? So just be aware of that, parents, from that standpoint. But I want to see you play, but I've always said one of the greatest things I could ever see happen to you is I see you get yanked. Because if I can see a kid get yanked because they weren't playing, I've seen your highlight film, I know you know how to play. You've maybe come to my camp, I know you know how to play. I know you know how to play volleyball. But if I can see you get yanked and how you react to it, oh my God, that's like golden at that point in time. Do you walk away? You walk away kicking stuff? Is your coach talking to you and you're doing this, type of thing? Oh, chink, 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 off you go. Do you sit like this on the bench while your team is being played? Do you sit like this? Okay, or are you here? Are you engaged? Are you cheering on your teammate? One of the greatest things I ever saw from one of my athletes at the collegiate level, senior setter, we were running a 6-2, got yanked in a great game, just in a big game. Had 2 freshman setters running it. Yeah, that's slightly scary, by the way. The third setter on the depth chart is who got put in. That setter went up and she set a ball, just doubled the crap out of it. I mean, it was spinning 60 different directions. My senior from the bench jumps out and goes, "Paige, you got this. You trust your hands, girl, you got this." That was the girl who had just been yanked. She wanted to win that bad. She was that strong of a teammate. She didn't give a, you know what, that she was ticked that she was on the bench, don't get me wrong, but that was what she needed to do right then and there, was get that kid, get her teammate to play better, because she knew that that was what her job was at that point in time. If I see that from somebody on the bench, stars, hearts, whatever the appropriate thing goes around it, circles, smiley faces, all that good fun stuff like that. So, next, where are we at? I can pull out my list. Should I pull out my list? I'm all over. I'll take a question. How about that? We'll do that. What do we got? Someone's got to have a question.
Is emails better or filling out perspective pages?
Ooh, great question. Some of it is going to vary from program to program and coach to coach. For me, I always preferred emails, okay, from that standpoint. But what it's happened times too is you'll do one or the other, and then you might get feedback. Hey, can you hop on and do this? You know, if you send me an email, can you fill out this perspective form or that type of thing? If you get that, do it, okay? If I give you something to do, do it. No matter how, you're like, well, I just gave you all my information, this and this and that. You know what? Here's the secret. I may not really need your information. I may be seeing if you follow up. I may be seeing if you can follow instructions. You may be making my life easier because now it's putting information into a system type of thing. So you're going to want to try multiple avenues of contact to figure out what that coach wants to do. Volleyball coaching camps that your specific schools run, usually a great way to get in. Okay? You're going to get to see the campus. You're going to get to meet some of the team. You're going to get to see your coach in action. And now I've got another way that I'm looking at you from that standpoint. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it's another tool to get in. You're in another system. And I'm going to a tournament going, hey, she was at our camp. Let me take a look at it. Now, that doesn't mean you need to do 15, 20, 30 camps in a 2-week period, because that's unrealistic. That's where your strategy comes in, okay? Pick your camps. And I know parents, camps can be a resource. Can require resources, so be strategic about it, okay? Ask the coach. If you're in communication with a coach and a coach says, hey, I want you to come to camp, ask them, where do you see me right now? Where do you see me on your depth chart? Where am I recruiting? Where am I falling on your recruiting chart? We'll tell you, and if I won't tell you, that tells you something too, probably, right? So ask for information in regards to that. Picking up the phone and making the call to the coach is probably one of the scariest things you'll ever have to do until you have to do it again in real life and you're doing other stuff. But it's totally and completely worth it. And if you make a mistake, just own it. I had a kid that emailed me, put the wrong coach name in. She emailed me back and said, Coach, I was working too fast. Sorry, I am really interested in your school. And I was like, dude, I'll give you props for following back up on it. For not going, oh my God. Actually, she ended up coming. She ended up being a really great middle too, actually. But just own it from that standpoint. It's scary, we know, we get it, we're frightening, it's all right, we work at it, it's part of our charm. But communicate, talk with us, okay? Another great question, another great question?
What do we put on our highlight films? What things do you want?
Ooh, great question. Highlight films, okay. Again, it's going to have some variation from coach to coach, there's gonna be some things. First off, one of the things I will tell you, if you are a middle blocker, don't start with serving. And you laugh, but I've seen it. 5 minutes of a middle blocker, serving. Yeah, great server, love it, perfect, love the float. But I don't need to see 5 minutes of you serving, okay? From that standpoint. So you want to take what you are trying to showcase the best. If you are a libero who is fantastic in service receive, you want to showcase that. And it's less of it than you need it to be. It doesn't need to be 10 minutes long. You've got about 30 seconds to a minute, if I'm feeling frisky, to grab my attention on a highlight reel. At that point in time, you've got to pique my interest, and I got to go, huh, all right, her footwork looks good. That's another thing. I want to see everything. I don't just want to see your platform. I want to see your feet move. I want to see you move without the ball. So don't just pass and then cut it. I want to see you pass and maybe take 2 steps to go cover. Oh my God, if you cover, it goes up 10 points in my book at that point in time. So we want to see that, but it doesn't have to be 10 minutes long. It doesn't have to be real fancy either. You don't necessarily have to pay for someone to put bells and frogs and whistles and arrows and, I don't know, polka dots all over the place like that. Just make sure I can see your number, I know who you are, okay, and that I can see everything, and that it's not going to take me 5 years to figure out what you do from that standpoint. Usually at that point in time for me, you've piqued my interest. I may ask you for uncut game film. A lot of coaches will then ask you for uncut game film because we want to see what you do in between plays. We want to see how you react when you make a mistake. We want to see how you interact with your teammates, that type of thing like that. That is usually a second step for me. Coaches can be different. Again, if they ask, send it. Whatever they need. All right? There's a question back here?
If you play both beach and indoor, does the coach want to see both?
That's a great question too. And that is going to really vary from program to program. And I hate to say it right now, but that world right now is in such transition at this point in time that you're going to have some indoor coaches that don't want anything to do with the beach thing, and it's going to actually be a detriment. That attitude is becoming less and less and less, but you are going to have some programs that are going to fall in that side of the category. Then you've got the weird ones like me that were putting my indoor kids on the sand before beach was even a college sport from that standpoint. So it's going to really kind of vary. If you're talking to an indoor coach and the program does not have a beach program, I would stick with indoor. If you're talking to a beach coach and you're really thinking beach, I would just stick with beach. If you're talking to like a director of volleyball operations or that type of thing like that, they've got both programs, I would put indoor and then I'd put beach highlights, but I'd separate them somehow just so I know what I'm looking at. And then if I'm the indoor coach and I go, maybe not, but she might be good for our beach program, then I can send it on. Boy, great question. By the way, beach is great. If there was one thing I ever could tell any of my indoor players who've been to have played beach. And if you're a middle blocker, I know, you don't have the passing reps behind you, I get it, but play beach. Whether you love it or hate it, type of thing like that, it will make you a better volleyball player. What else?
Any questions, anybody?
I pulled out my phone, but I didn't read it. Let's see here.
Give us some characteristics of what coaches are looking in players when you say that. I want to see what they react, whether they're sitting, whether they're in the game. What are the things that you look for in those characteristics of a player?
Right. One of the biggest things for me is when and if you're on the bench, because we've all been on the bench, is are you engaged? Are you engaged in what's going on the court? Okay? That goes true for the fact too is in a huddle or in a timeout. Are you engaged? Are you listening? Do you look like you're listening to what's being said? Whether you're on the court or not, from that standpoint. One of the things that we did with my coaching staff, when I was at Pueblo, the first part of any timeout we had was in positional groups. So the timeout would be called, at the college level you have 90 seconds. The timeout would be called, the setters would go to the setters on the bench. The middles would go to the middles on the bench. The libs would go to the libs on the bench. And they would talk in positional groups while the coaching staff was figuring out what we wanted to say to the full group, okay? That existed because the people on the bench have a different perspective about what's going on and can see some different things. So if you're standing on the bench staring off at a butterfly somewhere, you're missing an opportunity, okay? And I don't want to see that. I want to see you engaged. I want to see you cheering. I want to see you being a quality teammate, okay? And whether that's slightly out of your comfort zone, because not all of us are cheerleaders, rah, 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 bouncing off the ceiling doing cartwheels. It doesn't need to be that. But if you're there, if you're engaged, if you're clearly passionate about what's going on, that's what I want to see. When you guys come together with a huddle, don't be the straggler. I mean, unless, of course, you're off shagging a ball. That's a fair point, and you're sprinting to get back in. I get it. But don't be the one that hangs their head and comes in late, okay? Be the person that's in there in the middle. This is one of the biggest things. You make a mistake, I hate this. I absolutely, positively hate this. You make a mistake, all right, I got it. Here we go. We got it figured out. Show me that you're like, all right, I can fix that. I'm on to the next one, and off we go, okay? Eye contact. You'll notice that I've been doing it a lot here from that standpoint. I think I've probably almost made eye contact with everyone. I haven't hit a couple of you back there because you just showed up. But trying to make eye contact with everyone, okay? When you're meeting people, when you're meeting a team, when you're talking with a coach, when you're with your team, that type of stuff like that. This shows me that you're paying attention. We are so used to this right now. I mean, this is our default setting at the moment. I get it. But if you can have your head up, and it's one of the biggest things with athletes, you guys are off of this for at least a couple hours a day, which is great. But you got to be able to interact and make eye contact and show me that you're engaged.
So can you differ from the positions a little bit, like a couple of things
Yep.
that you would be looking for in a libero, a setter, a middle, and outside, something that's a little specific for the girls to hear from their position?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things with hitters, this goes for really anybody in the front row, for one of the biggest things for middle is, do you transition? I mean, any college team that I've coached, if I say transition, they say it back to me 3 times, because it's, you know, in real estate, it's location, location, location. In volleyball, it's transition, 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 okay? And there's a variety of different transitions, but do you actually transition? Or do you block, take one step off, wait, and then try to make something happen off of that? Or do you bust your butt without the ball and get all the way outside, which, depending on your court, obviously, from that standpoint. Middles, do you actually move across the net and try to get to block everything? That doesn't mean like you're flailing all over the place and you're doing whatever, but if you get beat, do you just give up, or do you try to make something happen from that standpoint? Get over and do whatever your coach says, whether it's you go up anyway, or you transition off and play defense, whatever it is, or do you just go and just wait there like this, feeling like you're in the way? What do you do next, okay? Right sides and outsides. You got to be able to deal with a crappy set. Sorry. You got to be able to deal with a crappy set. I'm expecting you to be able to score off of a crappy set. And I'm expecting you to better the ball, okay? So bettering the ball. So high ball hitters, right sides, outsides, you're going to get junk balls. It's just the way it is. Figure out how to make it work and figure out how to score on them sometimes, okay? Setters. Setters have to be able to play defense in my book, okay? That is one of my biggest, again, some of this is going to vary from coach to coach, but for me, my setter absolutely positively has to play defense. If you're leaving 6 years early because you don't want to play defense and you're worried about running to the net, off the list you go. You have to be willing to play defense, okay? So setters, that's a big thing for me. Setting-wise, actually, it's location. Can you locate the ball repeatedly in the same or close to the same spot over and over again? Can you get that ball consistently in its location at the tempo it's supposed to be over and over and over again? And can you do it from the slot, from the target? Can you do it going forward? Can you do it on the move? Can you do it coming off the net? Okay? But location, location, location from a setting standpoint. Libs, I know we all love to play defense way more than we love to service receive, but you got to be able to pass. You got to be able to pass. I can't tell you how many libs I've seen that they're fantastic at defense and they're okay at passing. Okay? You got to be able to pass. You have got to be able to command that back row. The service receive is your domain. Defense is your domain. You've got to be able to command it. You've got to be able to take what you need to take, and you've got to be able to put the ball on target. Okay? And if I need you to take half the court from a passing standpoint, you've got to be able to pass. Okay? Defensively, yes, you need to be able to defend as well. But I will much rather take a lib that can pass, phenomenal, and plays not as good a defense than flip it. Okay? Who did I miss? Did I miss anybody? Position wise? Personality characteristics. Okay. Liberos, you have got to be the grittiest, the most determined, and just can take it almost personally if a ball falls on your side of the court. I mean, it just has to grate on you almost in a healthy way. We don't want it to go too crazy. But I mean, it's almost just got to be a personal, just affront that ball hit the ground around you, okay? Because that's how you grow and develop, and your territory just starts to expand as we then teach you, as you grow strength, speed, agility-wise once you get to the college level. Middles, you got to work. I'm sorry. You guys work the hardest without the ball. You guys need to be up in transition, up in transition every time. Middles, you have to just be the workhorse. And you've got to, I hate to say it, but you've got to be able to do the work and not get all the glory. And it sucks because you're going to jump so many more times and not get to hit or not get the block than anybody else out there. And you've got to be okay with it. You've got to take pride in it almost. You know what? I pulled that middle blocker. If an outside or a right side has a one-on-one block, okay, setters, yes, you did have something to do with that, okay? But middles, you have to take pride in those things that don't show up on the stat sheet. You have to take pride in the fact that you pulled the middle blocker. You have to take pride in the fact that you touched a ball on the block, okay? It's not all about stuff blocking. If you slow that ball down so our defense can defend around it, fantastic. The other thing that happens too is if you force somebody out because you got up and blocked, that's never going to show up in the stat sheet, but it's critical. So middles, you have to be willing to do the work and take pride in all of those things that just do not show up in the stat sheet. Your hitting percentage needs to be a little bit higher than everybody else's. You're going to have to, you're not playing all the way around, so you've got a limited opportunity, that type of thing. So you've got to be willing to be able to take pride in that stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheets. Outsides, you just got to find a way to score. At that point in time, you've got to transition hard, you've got to get out, and there's just got to be I was a 5'8" on a good day outside hitter. I played with an enormous chip on my shoulder. I was just like, you know what? Crappy set, inside set, 7-foot blockers, I don't care. I am going to find a way to figure out how to score, okay? And if I got blocked, give me the ball again. Let's go. Better set me at that point in time, okay? I mean, I would literally walk back, you lost my setter, and just be like, I've got this, give me the ball, okay? From that standpoint. Right sides. Right side is developing into a very interesting position. The biggest thing with right sides, I would tell you right now, is first off, learn how to pass. Because if you can be a passing right side, that increases your value from that standpoint. But right sides have to have almost the same mentality as the outside hitters. Okay? You're going to see a lot of junk balls. You've got to be able to transition. And here's the other one. You cannot decide if you're going to be set. I've seen so many right sides do this. They transition back. They think their setter is going outside, and then that setter just takes it and flicks it back. Okay? You have to be ready every single time. Do we have any lefties here? No lefties? Yes? 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 Okay. So yours is a double flip at that point in time. Because you're a lefty on the right side, you are like a right-hander on the outside. You are a second outside hitter at that point in time because you are on your strong side at that point in time. So same rules apply for you. You got to be able to figure out how to score, and you got to have that chip on your shoulder to just be like, yep, nope, we're going to figure out how to get this done. Setters, you got to lead. You got to lead. You just do. You have to know your team. You have to know your hitters. You have to know what your hitter wants from a physicality standpoint. You have to know what your hitters need from a mental standpoint. You have to know who to go to in the clutch, who not to go to in the clutch. You absolutely, positively have to lead. You have to be the extension of the coach out there, okay? Which also means that from my standpoint as a coaching standpoint, you have to have a pretty high volleyball IQ because we need to be able to have a conversation, okay? We need to be able to talk almost more on a coaching level at sometimes than maybe some of the other players, because you're the one who is leading everybody out there. To use a traditional phrase, you're the quarterback at that point in time. You're running the offense, you're keeping everybody where they need to go, and if something's going haywire, you are going to be the first one who knows it. And so you're going to have the first chance to be able to fix it, okay? And you have to play defense. You have to play defense. Please play defense. Please play defense. I think I got Okay, what else?
That's about it. You guys, I'm going to steal the girls, but if parents want to ask Jill any questions.
Yeah, parents, if you want to stay and ask about this whole recruiting process, absolutely.
Who to talk to, maybe any university athlete, field level, what did you look at?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Did you go to NCSA? All that stuff that we either pay or do not pay for, what do we need to do?
So, athletes, go play volleyball. Have fun. You're welcome. Thanks, you guys, for listening.
Is there one that you recommend over the other? NCSA, field level?
Is this still on tape? It's gonna vary a lot depending on the program. There are some programs that rely heavily on those recruiting companies. There are other programs that don't. When I was coaching, I used them a little bit, but it was way more on a personal level than those type of things. I'll be honest, the ones that showed up in the mail from, what is it? The one that starts with an N, blank, that one. $1,200. The funny part is that since I've left college coaching, I've been approached by them to do, and I'm like, no, thank you. The problem is they just have so many kids, and it's a challenge in order to be able to get what you need, what you really need from them, and it's a lot of money. Again, there's going to be some programs that are going to rely heavily on them. I happen to not be one of them. I honestly think if there's a couple of ways, if you can target where you want to be, or target what you're looking at, I think your resource of time is better spent than the resource of money on that, if you can target a little bit better. Does that make sense? I mean, does that seem, yeah. I mean, it's a tough call. I get it. What else? I know you guys have questions, so.
Dad wants to know what's put in the email. Do you say you're ranked somewhere, or you want a tournament, or anything? Stats?
Stats you're going to get a little bit lost in. Obviously name, position, things like that. If there's a big accomplishment on it, like if you won a tournament, absolutely. Think about it almost as like applying for a job, okay? From that standpoint. What you want to put in there is something that's going to grab my attention, that's going to make me want to learn more, okay? If you throw in a list of a bunch of different things, I'm a volleyball coach, I get distracted easily, that type of thing like that. I'm going to get lost in it. But if you can put something in there that's going to pull my attention, and to be honest, it might not even be volleyball related. I've had a couple of random things where, somebody's told me a joke in the middle. I mean, just done something kind of different that's just enough to kind of pull my attention and pull me in. That's really what kind of needs to be in there. And short, the longer they get, the more I get lost. Again, if you think about it like applying for a job, same thing. 30 seconds. You got 30 seconds of my attention. Sometimes it feels like it's even less than that. But to somehow grab it and make me want to know more.
And when you want to know more, what do you do with that?
I'm going to reach back out. I'm going to look like if in your email, if you put something in there and you provide a link, like to a video or something like that, I'm going to click on the link, and for the highlight reel or whatever. And at that point in time, I'm going to say if for me, if I was the head coach, I would push it on to my assistant who is in charge of recruiting and say, hey, find out more, and they're going to reach out and say, okay, this, and this. Or some of the smaller programs, it'll be the head coach doing everything from that standpoint. They'll reach out and say, hey, when are you, give me this. The other thing that I would say too is I would include, if you have an upcoming tournament and it's a big one, or if it's in their region type of thing like that. Like when I was in Colorado, Crossroads was huge. So the kids that would say, hey, I'm gonna be at Crossroads, and as we even got closer to it, hey, I'm gonna start on this court, Crossroads type of thing, that was always nice. So if you've got an upcoming tournament that you're gonna be in, if it's a big one, put it in there. If it's in the region, if you're looking at a school in Texas and Lone Star's coming up and you're gonna be there, put it in there, that type of stuff like that.
The introduction part of it, how much do you want to hear about academics?
Ooh, great question. Academics, so they really should have heard this too, but they won't remember it. The way scholarships work, okay? At the Division I level, volleyball is what's called a head count sport, okay? At the Division I level, it says, okay, hey, I've got 12, if you're fully funded, you have 12 scholarships. That scholarship has to be given as a unit. You get one, you get one, you get one, okay? It's a head count sport. So, and it's usually it's a full ride and it's all encompassing from that standpoint. Once you break out of that D1 model, the rest of the world, Division II, NAIA, D3 is a tiny little bit different. We'll talk about that in a second. They're what we call partial scholarships. So I have a pool of money that's deemed for athletic use. You've got this much money, Jill, that you can use. I can give a quarter scholarship to you, half a scholarship to you, that type of thing, and I can spread it all out. Because what I can do then is your academic side. If you qualify academically for stuff through the university, which most of those schools have, if you've got a quality GPA, you're gonna get a presidential scholarship. If you've got this coming in, you're gonna get this type of scholarship, and I can package it all together. So while you might be a really, really strong athlete, okay, and you may be worth, in the grand scheme of the universe, 12 grand, but if you're a great student and I can get you for 6 out of my athletic budget because I can put all this stuff in there, oh my goodness, let's do this thing, type of thing like that. D3 is a little different because D3 does not give that pot of money to the athletic side. You cannot give athletic scholarships at the D3 level. They make up for it in regards to that academic and that university financial aid. So if you are a really good athlete and you are really freaking smart, D3 is gonna love you because they can then give you a ton of money because a lot of times because you've got such good grades. So it can be packaged differently at those lower levels. The other thing too, I will tell you, and I'm assuming that this is the same because it hasn't changed the NAIA level. From a coaching standpoint, at the NAIA level, the higher your grades are in college, the better it is for me because of how I have to track it. It used to be if you were 3.5 or above, your aid that I gave you didn't count towards my total. Like, I was only allowed 8 fully funded scholarships. That's the most money I could have. But if I'm giving you 5 grand and you're getting a 3.6, I didn't have to count that 5 grand in my reporting. If you're getting a 3, between a 3 and a 3.5, I only had to count half of it. Type of thing. If you were below a 3.0, I had to count the whole thing. That's once you were in college. So your track record of coming in is going to make me go, well, she's a 4.0 student. Chances are, if we can keep things figured out, well, she's going to be in that level. So that's a benefit for me. So to return to your original question, yes, I want to hear that. I want to know what your GPA is, maybe a little bit about the honors classes that you're in. You don't need to dive into a ton of detail, class schedule, courses you took, when your SAT is scheduled or anything like that. But some indication that you are a quality student, yes, definitely in their introduction. What else?
What about high school video versus
Ooh,
especially with COVID.
Right.
And I'm just gonna throw it out, but also an injury.
Okay.
So we only have video from like 3
If you're splicing together like a highlight reel, I don't care where it comes from that standpoint. If you've got and if you're sending me unedited game footage, if it's a good game, I don't care where it comes from. I don't care if it's coming from high school, if it's coming from club. As long as the volleyball level is high enough, because there are some high school teams out there that are just phenomenal. And then there was the high school team that I played for back in the day, which was not, type of stuff like that. And I wouldn't have put that in any highlight film, but, type of thing like that. So as long as the level is where it needs to be, I don't care where it comes from. And actually, if you are local and I know really well the high school, that can even sometimes be even more of a bonus because I'm familiar with, that type of thing like that.
How does it work with walk-ons?
Great question.
Do they always leave a spot for walk-ons?
Nope. How's it work with walk-on tryouts? Walk-ons, and again, it's going to vary depending on the level and the program. Walk-on spots like at the D1 level, a lot of D1s will recruit walk-ons the same way that they recruit scholarship athletes. Because they have a limited number of roster spots. Okay? At the D1 level, you're very limited on the number of roster spots you can have. I think it's 15, but you're only allowed 12 scholarships. So now you've got this 3 that sits there, but it's limited. A lot of times coaches will talk about the fact that, hey, you can come in as a walk-on and then you can get money. Always assume that that's not going to happen. Not because the coach necessarily doesn't want to do it or is lying to you or whatever, but it's so hard to predict the future and there's so many variables involved. I mean, COVID is a great example, but you have to, if you're going to go to a program where you're walking on, you have to be prepared, and this is for your guys too, you have to be prepared that no money is going to come from the volleyball side of things. If it does, great, but can you complete the degree and complete the 4 years there without the aid from that standpoint? Some programs, once you leave the D1 level, some programs will carry walk-ons because they need to carry a larger roster, okay? NAIA schools will carry very large rosters, okay? So they will have walk-on spots. They may have a walk-on tryout, okay, from that standpoint. Or they may do something where it's like, hey, we're going to give you $1,000 now, and next year we're going to bump it to 3. Always assume that bump isn't going to come, just for your own sanity at that point in time. But specifically ask the coach in the program, do you have a walk-on spot? Type of thing like that. Would you consider me for a walk-on spot? How do walk-ons work in your program? And they'll tell you, because there's some schools that are going to recruit that walk-on spot the same way they do a scholarship athlete.
Our focus is the academic part of the school, and then wherever she decides academically,
Yep.
that's okay? Because I don't know how the schools work. We're not necessarily trying to recruit academic scholarships. That's a more likelihood.
So it's going to vary on the program. Again, if you're looking at a highly academic school that's an NAIA school, I bet you 10 to 1 that you call that coach up and say, hey, I've got this much of a GPA. I've already, I'm doing the type of thing. I'm going to be like, yeah, let's, come to a tryout, or let's bring you on a visit and let's take a look. That's going to be, heads up. Okay, you're fine. That's going to be less likely. The D3 will probably be the same way. D3 will work a lot with walk-ons because they can't give that athletic scholarship standpoint. D2 will have something in place for walk-ons. A lot of times they'll either hold a tryout or they'll say come to camp and we'll see if you can fit, that type of thing like that. But in your situation, if you've got 5 schools that she's looking at academically, reach out to those 5 coaches and say, hey, this is who I am. I'm planning on coming. I've already got this much, this is my GPA and I'm looking at this much scholarship money. Do you have a spot? And then see what it says. Yeah?
What if they decided to do college route?
Great. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with the junior college route. A lot of times I would even recommend it for some athletes from a standpoint of if the grades aren't quite there, great way to go from that standpoint. If physically not quite there yet, or if there's some other reason it's just not quite ready to make that jump, junior college is a fantastic way to go. Getting to the right junior college can be a little bit tricky you want to talk to that coach and you want to find out, first off, who has progressed, where have they gone, that type of thing like that. There will be some junior colleges that are just feeder schools, you know, for other programs. To be perfectly honest, I'm more familiar with the West Coast junior colleges than I am with the East Coast, but Pierce College in Southern California was a funnel for Pepperdine men's volleyball. I mean, literally Pepperdine would say, hey, we don't have a spot for you, go to Pierce, and they'd go to Pierce for 2 years, and then they'd end up in the Pepperdine team. So there can be many junior colleges that are similar to that and have that high level in regards to that. So you're going to want to talk to that coach, and you're going to want to find out how many people they've placed moving forward, and where they've gone from that standpoint. I've worked at the junior college level. I worked in the athletic training room at the junior college level for way too long because I'm old. But there's a lot of good junior colleges out there that will help somebody get where they need to go. There's some ones that are not, and sometimes they can get a little bit lost in there. So just, again, doing your research and progressing through. But it can be a great way to get to the next level, especially if there's something that's just not quite there. If the GPA isn't there, it's a great place to bump from there.
Are there certain majors that coaches look at and go, you know what, with that major and doing volleyball, that
Nursing.
is not going to happen?
Nursing's the big one. There are actually there's only like a handful of schools that will let you do nursing and play any form of a collegiate sport. Briar Cliff actually happened to be one of them. And to be perfectly honest, I had to start planning for my juniors to have a terrible year because that was the year they were in their clinical rotations and they just couldn't, it just, you know, doing their best, great kids, but they just couldn't pull it off. So nursing is a big one. Anyone that's going to have anything that's going to tie to that clinical setting or that type of thing like that, there's going to be a balancing act. Depends on the pre-med program, but yeah, pre-med can be a challenging one as well. I'm trying to think. No more doctors or nurses. There are some, and there's schools too that have like a pre-nursing or a pre. I don't want to say a pre-ed, pre-med, something like that, but there's programs like that can set them up to go into that chosen field and still allow them to play it. But it's going to be very program specific. But nursing is the big one. To get a BSN and play, it just doesn't really work. It's a great question though.
What about girls that finish with 1-2 years of college already completed when they finish high school?
Ooh, yes. Okay, that can be fun and exciting because, again, sometimes if you're coming in as a junior, from that standpoint, from the scholarship stacking standpoint, I've got access to maybe some different types of scholarships that now I can use because you're coming in as a junior or a sophomore, that type of thing like that. So that can be a very cool thing. The one question you're going to need to answer is, well, if you're coming in as a junior, does that mean you're leaving me in 2 years? Type of thing like that. What's the plan? Because am I recruiting you as a 2-year or am I recruiting you as a 4-year? Because if I'm recruiting you as a 2-year, coming from that JC standpoint, I expect my JC transfers to come in as a junior academically, but also from a sports standpoint too. So now as a junior, you're expected to be able to, step into a role and contribute, or I'm recruiting you very specifically to fill a need. If you're coming in as I don't even know what we call this, freshman junior, and we'll just call it that, freshman junior, you've still got a lot of developing to do. So do I have you for 2 years or do I have you for 4? Type of thing like that. So what's the plan? If the plan is that you're going to roll into a master's, because there's some fantastic 3-for-2s programs out there now, that type of thing like that, and your plan is to roll right into a master's, fantastic. Now you're here for 4 years, we've got it figured out, wonderful. But you're going to have an answer to that question what's the plan? Standpoint. Great question. Anything else? No, we good? We sure? Positive? Oh, you're welcome. Fantastic.